these aren't the only 5 by any means, right? Happy 5 Fact Friday. 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden, and it is 5 Fact Friday. Good morning, everybody. Bit of a rough morning. That's what happens when you spend the evening with Stig. Hope you're all well. It's 5 Fact Friday, the weekly video when I pick the things that I think are going to have the biggest impact on the housing market. We're spoiled for choice this week, and share them with you. And it's recently reported events in the last 7 days that you can verify for yourselves. Links to all of them are in the description or in the blog. And they are facts that I've picked. And it's been a long time since anyone's actually ever has disagreed with them. These are the things I think make the biggest impact to the housing market overall. Maybe not immediately, but significantly either way. And they're things that I think people should be aware of. And perhaps a lot of home movers aren't aware of the outside factors that affect the housing market. That's something I've learned on this channel. A lot of especially first-time movers are unaware of the connections between government policy and why you can't afford a house, or government policy and why it's so difficult to move, or government policy and why you get the idea, right? And also what's happening in the financial markets. And just to recap, because I've got a lot of new followers this week again, thank you very much. Welcome, all of you. My mission here with this channel is to try, we're shooting for a home for everyone. Okay, a home for everyone. And the number one biggest adversary in the mission for a home for everyone is the government, successive governments, all of them. Not just this one, but especially this one. I mean, this one is taking it to a new level, because why are governments responsible for the terrible state of the housing market? Because they create the policies that create the housing market environment. Okay, it's always policy, lending policy, tax policy, employment policy, and economic policy, because the number one thing people need to buy a home is a job. And that's not going very well at the moment. Anyway, before I start getting into a rant, I mean, just 24 hours ago, we were all bracing ourselves for an increase in income tax, a 2p increase in income tax kind of across the board was expected. But no, even though they announced the budget with almost 3 months to run from when they announced it to when it's going to be, giving themselves a lot of time, here we are, 12 days from budget day, and they are U-turning on arguably the biggest policy. Basically, the rumors are that backbench Labour MPs were going, you're both gone if you do that, right? If you slap our voters in the face so hard with breaking a manifesto promise that big, you're out of here. You, Starmer, Reeves, out. That's the rumor of what's been happening. And then, of course, there was briefing from Downing Street yesterday. You can sense the panic coming from Number 10. But on the other side, they've got their party on one side, and then they've got the bond markets on the other side, saying you better not stuff the economy up, because if you worry us about the chances of us getting our money back in the long term, if you worry us about the stability of the British economy and therefore the UK government's ability to repay our debts with our interest, then we're going to sell our bonds. That's going to put your interest rates up and make it even worse for you. Well, this morning, the market's initial reaction was, the best way to describe what the market did in an image is that's actually what the market did. It spiked. The bond market did that to the government this morning. I mean, I'm laughing because it is farcical, but it's also very serious, because each and every one of us will feel the damage at a personal level from what the government's incompetence. Anyway, I haven't even started on the 5 facts yet. I need another slab of tea. By the way, Alex, Housing Stig, and I are planning to be in person together to do a live reaction as the budget unfolds, as the car crash unfolds on budget day. And as is tradition, the law protects the Chancellor's right to have an alcoholic drink at the dispatch box when delivering the budget. So, in honour of that law, Alex and I will do the same and try and find some gallows humour in the bleakness that we're expecting to come out of the budget. Anyway, right, the five facts off the top of my head for those of you who don't want to watch the whole video. Crisis, the housing charity, put out a report showing that homelessness is actually much worse than the official figures say, because of the number of people who are not accepted by councils as being officially homeless, to the point it's so bad that Crisis is now deciding to become a landlord itself, this homeless charity that does actually provide shelter and help people, unlike Shelter, which is just a joke. They're going to become a landlord because that's how bad homelessness is getting. And I point that out because I continue to wage the one-man war that these government policies are the things that are putting thousands of people out of homes and into homelessness every single month. Never gets talked about in the media. Fact number 2. Employment data came out this week. Let's just say it already wasn't good, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse faster. That is a very negative indicator for the future of the housing market, because it's affecting the number of people who are able to afford a mortgage or get a mortgage, even though wage growth is still positive. Because positive wage growth is an uplifting factor for house prices, but the wage growth level is shrinking. Fact number 3 is a bit of an anecdote, but it's on Bloomberg, and it's some evidence that shows that prices per square foot in London are down as much as 50% in some areas. All right. I mean, this is not going to come as a shock to anybody, but there are still people trying to pretend that's not happening, and it's important everyone does know that, because when we look back, we're going to go, how is it all covered up so effectively? New house building stopped completely, and it didn't even hit the headlines. It got into the papers, but it never made the headlines. And there was a 50% house price crash in central London. Never really made the headlines. Yeah. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. We've got this month's Royal Institute. So fact number 4, this month's Royal Institute Chartered Surveyors monthly survey, continuingly bleak and projecting further difficulty for the housing market in the coming months, which is going to affect all of those people who are already struggling to sell, and doesn't include all of the extra people that are going to be coming onto the market after the budget. Yup, it doesn't get any better. And 5, Rightmove is so the BBC and Rightmove have one thing in common this week, which is they both got their £1 billion lawsuit. Rightmove's £1 billion lawsuit against it is coming from agents. All of its member agents are automatically included in the group legal action. They want their money back because they've been overcharged, and Rightmove, they allege Rightmove has broken competition laws. It's £1 billion. Now, I mean, the £1 billion would be a lot of money for the BBC, and Rightmove is big, but it's still £1 billion would be an awful lot. And then, of course, we got the story I started with, which is this one here. Okay, what's that going to actually mean for the budget, and for the markets, and for mortgage costs? Because, in a nutshell, again, for those of you who don't have time to listen to the whole thing, I suspect that the chances of the markets having a meltdown around this budget have now increased significantly, because what the story tells us is they are out of control. They don't know what's happening, and they just chose to save their own skin right? They gave in to Labour backbench and frontbench MPs saying, if you do that, you're out of here. They've caved into that threat when before they were caving into the threat from the market. So they've literally just, in my opinion, just put their own personal political skin above the economic stability of the country. How's that going to go for everybody? It's not going to go very well for any of us, because I think they're going to lose, still going to lose their jobs. I do not think either Starmer or Reeves will still be in power this time next year. I don't think so. Okay, who do we have here this morning? Timo, hi there. Gomeen, that's a new name, I think. Welcome. Patricia, hi there. Boss Hog, lucky to live. Rick Heath, bon dia. Wet Portugal. Yeah, I'd heard actually. I've got colleagues in Portugal, and I'd heard about these wild storms out there. Grasby, Purple Howl, Rumit, Samaya, Scarlett, good morning. Jenks, Allegram, M. Duffy, AK, Don Ferguson. I'm Mr. Punctual. I'm Mr. Not very punctual. AI Leons, that's funny. Pedro Santos, who wants to know? Wild Heather. Right, guys, I better crack on. Cayman Black, hello. Shazoids. Josh, you some funny names. Sam Baker. Martin Berman. Raymando, hi there. Right, okay. Let's get into, and call me out, right? Because on each one of these, I've got to tell you why I think it's going to affect the housing market. So, fact number one, I won't spend very long on this. I will just remind people that why it's happening is because the data is being ignored. So, this story, when I first saved the story, had a different headline. And it was, I think, 189,000 households are homeless and not on official records. And they do actually cover that down in the story. So there's new research by Crisis found nearly 300,000 families, not people, families and individuals are experiencing the worst forms of homelessness. A 21% increase since 2022. Somewhere down here, it gets into more of the details, but they are now going to become a landlord for the first time in their history because it's nearly impossible to find housing for homeless people because there are so many and because there's not enough social housing, right? This does affect us all. Not just the people who are affected, it affects everything. It affects the housing market. It creates competition for housing stock. You know, a lot of these people have been removed from their homes by evictions because of landlords selling up. That's cited as the number one reason. It's entirely avoidable, this problem. It is honestly entirely avoidable. I need a whole day to explain why and how, but it is entirely avoidable. And this avoidable homelessness exists despite sufficient resources, and I don't mean money, sufficient resources being in place for nobody to need to be homeless, with subtle changes to the rules about evicting people. Let's see what happens under the Renters' Rights Act. That's now become law, by the way, as of 1st of May next year. We've now got that date. Let's just see what happens with that. Let's see whether or not this trend continues and gets worse, this accelerating levels of homelessness, or whether actually the banning Section 21 evictions starts to reduce it. Let's see. Keep an open mind. Okay. Percentage change. So this is payrolled employees. And actually, there's another graph I want to just show you that some of you who follow me on X will have seen already. Give me 1 second. It is worth seeing it. There it is. And I know I've had this on the screen already this week, but UK payroll employees. So at the moment, let's just wrap it up with this, summarize it with this. According to the government's own official figures, in the last 2 months, there have been over 1,000 people a day coming out of payroll deployment, becoming unemployed, right? That's the net figure. People being employed, people being unemployed. There are 1,000 people a day more being unemployed than made unemployed than there are being made employed. 1,000. Like, do you remember when if a company was going bankrupt and laying off 1,000 staff, that would make headline news? Yeah. Well, 1,000 a day, and it's not in the headlines. Now ask yourself what that's going to do to the housing market, okay? Because wage growth and number of people in jobs that can get mortgages directly impact demand for housing. So my factor here being, like, there are still people who can buy houses, and they should do, and everyone should always buy a house as long as it's a home they want to live in long term, they're not overpaying for it. But I just want everyone to stop thinking that it's going to make them any money. Okay. I'm beginning to feel for the first time like that actually is, that truth is now landing. People are realizing, okay, a home is about somewhere to live, not about making money. In fact, it is the speculators speculating for profit on house prices that's caused affordability to get so bad. Affordability is now gradually improving under one metric, but under the real life metric, still actually not improving, because 1% a year real wage growth is not enough to keep up with real inflation, and owner-occupier housing inflation is higher than that anyway. So, and these are the results of our esteemed Chancellor's budget measures from a year ago, where she said, oh no, we won't put a tax up on working people, but we'll put a tax up on their employers instead, because that won't do anything, right? It's very, very frustrating for those of us who understand how the economy actually works, when you have people in government who genuinely don't understand how the economy works. I mean, they literally don't understand the mechanics, the financial, mathematical mechanics of how the economy works. When they put in place policies, this happens. And we're about to get another round of that in 2 weeks' time. Brace yourselves. Okay, so that's fact number 2. Joblessness and unemployment are up. Number 3. Hang on a second. Where'd that go? Bloomberg put this report out yesterday. And yes, they're talking about one apartment, but it was a £45 million apartment reduced to £25 million. And yes, it's only an anecdote, but it is an example of what's happening more widely. And the data comes from a company called Lonres, which measures all central London transactions. It has all the data on them. And this is the graph you want to see, because this is the price per square foot graph for that whole development. Okay. And £4.3 thousand per square foot last year, £2.3 thousand per square foot this year on the prices achieved in that development. Okay. So by any measure, that is a price crash for leasehold flats in London. Okay. Unreported. And this is land registry data. There we are. Not just Lonres, land registry data. So, you know, I have been posting about it on X and on YouTube and on LinkedIn for a while, that in central London, for leasehold properties, I'm very specific about that, we are in the midst of a full-blown house price crash. I mean, it's the only time I've knowingly, willingly used the word "there is a crash happening." It's like, it's definitely, there is no doubt. There can be no doubt about this, right? London leasehold flats are crashing. And it's what I've been seeing at the front, the coalface of my work with Carringtons. That's what I've been seeing for a long time coming. And it's like the public has woken up, and the demand for flats has fallen so far through the floor. God, those of you, I said to you a couple of years ago, you should sell up. You should sell up. You should sell up. If you think you might need to sell up, you need to sell up. I wonder how many people heard me say that and went, it's interesting, but I'm going to ignore him. The fact that new build sales in London have collapsed to basically zero. It was 19 in May and 26. 19 actual flats sold in May in London and 26 actual new builds sold in June in London. I'm surprised there weren't any headlines going, new build flat sales jump 40% in June from 19 to 26. It's the kind of thing you can't put past them. Right. A couple of comments there. Someone about Chris Watkins. I'll get to that question. So there we are. London house price, London flat prices, not house prices, London flat prices, definitely crashing right now under our noses, going unreported. Okay, the RACS. So we're into fact number 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, for those of you who are new, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors it's a different monthly metric. It doesn't measure prices. It doesn't have any specific metrics in it. It is a sentiment survey of qualified, as in RICS qualified estate agents from around the country, about 200 of them, giving their views from the front line. It's roughly 30 days old since they actually gave the answers. So bear that in mind, right? And ask yourself, what's changed between this? What's changed in the last 30 days? So let's take what they've said is happening. Remember that it's the 30 days ago and think whether those things got better or worse to get a feel for what's happening actually right now. And they've used my favorite word again. It's softening because it was hard. Did you know it was hard? They never told us it was hard. They never said buyer demand is really strong and hard and rigid and magnificent. Oh dear. I'm sorry. So but buyer demand continues to soften. Okay, I'm just trying to regain my composure. It's because they've doubled down on the use of this word. They never tell us when it's getting harder. They only tell us when it's getting softer. And I am just obviously a child. I'm sorry. So last month it was saying things that weren't great. So this is about as negative as they get. Headline indicators tracking sales market activity remain in negative territory. House prices continue to face modest downward pressure at the national level. What they're saying there is, if you average out everybody, it's overall down. But it's some places, for example, central London, the downward pressure is not modest, it's catastrophic. And that subdued backdrop, softened to the point of being subdued, expected to persist over the coming months. In other words, they are expecting these market conditions to persist. We will have a quick look at, I'm not going to get into this in too much detail. This is worth looking at the local level. And if you haven't seen them before, these charts are confusing, but once you get them, they're actually very simple. So this spiky line on the left-hand side here, let's just get it a little bigger on the screen. This is basically, they ask the surveyors, and the questions that they ask the surveyors are in this PDF, and the PDF is linked to in the 5 Fact Friday link, so you can have a look for yourself. It's effectively the balance between agents who think prices are going up and agents who think prices are going up, and agents who think prices are going down. And more agents think prices are going down than they're going up. It's only a sort of minus 20% balance, but that's where we are right now. at a national level. This breaks it up by regions, and Wales, for some reason, has a strong positive price balance in Wales, which is unusual. The North and the Northwest doing better. Scotland and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland still absolutely smashing it on prices for some reason. But new buyer inquiries negative, continuing to get more negative. Regionally, new buyer inquiries are down everywhere except for Wales and the Northwest and Northern Ireland. But even Scotland is flattening for new buyer inquiries. But this is the so new vendor instructions over the past month. So this is a lot of sellers putting everything on hold while they wait for the budget to see what it actually says. And I think for those of you who were planning to sell anyway, and would have sold if it wasn't for the budget, I think mostly you're going to wish you had sold and hadn't waited. And I think that's going to create a backlog of sellers coming to the market. There's going to be a bit of rush of it in the new year. I think I could be wrong. I don't know. This it's got lots more charts. Price expectations. I love the fact that in this 3-month and 12-month ahead price expectations, even though their own graph tells them how over optimistic their 12-month expectations are, they still persist in doing it. Look, 3 months from now it's down, but a year from now it's going to be up. It's going to be fine. I don't share their optimism. I really don't. The thing is, you've got to remember, estate agents are not economists. They're not macroeconomists. And they don't have the time to do the work looking into exactly what's going to be happening in the economy in ways that's going to affect the housing market. So they're always over optimistic. They're always over optimistic. Okay. I covered this on a video yesterday. I won't spend long on this today. But Rightmove is facing a £1 billion legal action by agencies. And that's relevant because Rightmove is easily the biggest single brand name and institution in the housing market. It's used more than any other site by both movers and agents, and it has a very powerful influence over prices, whether it means to or not, through its choice of giving an asking price index, which leads to inflated prices, that leads to falling transactions. It's whether it means to or not, its existence and the way that it reports stuff makes overvaluing worse, because people look on Rightmove to see the prices and go, that's what house prices are. And of course they're not. That's a lot too high. So the fact that Rightmove is facing that kind of action is, it's the first time that's happened in its 25-year history. And that happened a while after it had a big 28% share price fall, because it made a bet on AI that isn't paying off. Because guess what? The property industry doesn't understand AI well enough to actually use it in a way that's going to make a genuine positive difference. Generally speaking, there are a couple of exceptions, but generally speaking, there's just every AI all over the prop tech in the industry, and it's not actually moving the needle on anything that matters, sadly. Right, okay, and then on to this last story. So if this is fact number 6. By the way, just sorry, the reason I think this is a big story in terms of the housing market is because if Rightmove ends up going through some changes that are forced by this legal action, it might finally crystallize or catalyze some changes to their business that might clip their wings on how over-optimistic they are about house prices, how much overvaluing happens, and it might just help transaction volumes improve. In other words, I think it's healthy that Rightmove is being challenged in any way. It's just had runaway dominance and it's been unchecked for too long. So this, I think, is a good thing. I don't wish Rightmove any harm. I wish they'd stop rinsing their member agents, and I wish they'd stop over reporting on prices. But otherwise, they're going to be here for a long time. Okay. Have a quick check of the comments before we get into this. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we've got a post-budget prediction there, which I'll have a look at. Yes, sorry guys, just running through there to see if there are any. Yes, I was going to go there with the words. I started to think about the words flaccid, all that kind of stuff, but I just thought I had to try and keep things on track. Oh wow, okay, all right. That's an interesting comment. I'm definitely going to respond to in a minute. Okay, it's definitely a good thing if they have changed their minds about putting income tax up by 2p. That is a very good thing. I'm very, very happy about that if it's true. If they were going to do it and now they're not, that is excellent news for everyone. And it's good news for the health of the housing market. And when I say the health of the housing market, a healthy housing market is one where there aren't wild price swings in either direction and where transactions are plentiful and quick. That's a healthy housing market. Put your house in the market, get a really, really reliable price for it without having to worry about prices spiking or falling. You can crack on and move. That's a healthy housing market, right? A healthy, stable amount of growth, not outstripping wage growth, and lots of transactions happening in much shorter times. That is a healthy housing market. So this is good for a healthy housing market because, for obvious reasons, right? If people can't afford to move house, the housing market transaction volumes drop, prices become more volatile. It's not good for it. So this is good. What's not good is that this is a very clear signal that there is absolute headlessness behind the scenes. Headless chickens, total panic, no faith in the leadership, people covering their arse, trying to cover their jobs. You've got a whole government that's now basically individually worrying about their own position. That's the worst situation that there can be for us as voters. A government that doesn't care about the country, it simply cares about its own political survival. On top of that, we now know that they're incompetent. Right? We now know that they don't know how to manage the economy because they've said, "Hey, we're going to stabilize the economy." Oh, yeah, there's more work to do on stabilizing the economy. We know that they've demonstrated quite clearly they don't know what they're doing. I saw a report yesterday saying that the exit tax is not going to happen now. Whew. Again, for the benefit of people who want jobs and prosperity, that is good news. Again, it was another galactically stupid idea that would have severely harmed inward investment into the country and therefore harmed startups and job creation. They don't understand this. Clearly, the people who came up with that stupid idea don't understand it. They came up with a stupid exit tax idea because their stupid idea of taxing wealthy people so much they want to leave the country was causing so many to leave the country. I mean, they just keep doubling down on it, right? So we now know that they don't know how to run the economy. We know that. There's no argument about that, right? And if you think there is, you're just in denial, absolute denial. If you just look at the actual numbers, there's no question about it. They don't know how to run the economy. They don't know how to run themselves as a party. They don't understand basic laws. So we've had both Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves be caught foul of housing law, stamp duty, and landlord licensing. Keir Starmer has the leadership skills of a banana. And leadership is that intangible, critical thing any government must have in order to function properly. But it's not only leaderless from a point of view of leading his party, there's also no vision. Just endless platitudes and empty words. Renewal. This is what Britain renewal looks like. What's your vision? Like, exactly. I mean, I don't think we want to know what your vision is if you do have one. But if you do have one, we don't know what it is. He flips and he flops like a wet fish on a beach. It's just horrible. And so I think, let's remember, right? The people who own the bonds, the people who own the debt, the government debt, right? The lenders, the lenders to government of money who hold these bonds and who react to policies that affect the cost of government borrowing. They react to government policies in a way that affects the cost of government borrowing. They don't care which party's in power. They don't care about the British economy. They don't care. They only care. Their job is to care about making sure that their investment is safe. And if they don't think their investment is safe, if they don't think the government's going to be able to pay back its debts on time, if they think there's a rising chance of us turning into a vassal state, turning into a Venezuela, a runaway high inflation, and rampant borrowing, and they will sell their gilts, and it becomes the death spiral. We're already actually kind of in it, because the costs of borrowing for the government are one of the major problems for them balancing the books. Oh, they don't need to balance the books. They can just print all the money they want. It's modern monetary theory. You don't have to worry about balancing the books. You can just create money and issue currency. Fucking idiots. Sorry. It's just bad, right? It's the reason this is bad is because there is a tracing paper thin veil over the level of incompetency and panic behind the scenes of the government, and people jostling to be the next round of people leading the Labour Party. We're going to get a change of if Rachel Reeves survives this, it will absolutely, well, I'll have lost all faith in politics if I hadn't already. Right, okay, some comments. Matt says, Charlie, just watched Chris Watkins' net sales this year high at 12.5% above 2017-19. What could be the cause of that? And do you see it reversing? Is it just a sign of a fire sale? Confused. So for those of you that watch Christopher Watkins' weekly stats show, it is just one big national average. Okay. And as a result, it completely covers up the regional variations that are happening in the housing market. So where things are higher and things are lower, that day, I try and point this out to him, and I say to him, there's no value to your audience in national average figures. Now, net sales this year are high at 12.5% above 2017-19. They weren't that high in 2017 to 19 anyway, number one. Number two, transaction volumes are at half what they should be compared to, if we go back and extrapolate with population growth from 2006 levels, transaction volumes are very low. Far more people want to move than can move. And net sales, this is net sales agreed, so I don't think this is actually completed. If you look at it, he's got 5 or 6 different graphs about gross sales, net sales, year-to-date sales. And yeah, I mean, it's good news. That is good news. There is still activity. That's all that's saying. It's not saying that the market's great, because there isn't one market. And I keep on saying this, and Chris keeps not listening. National average figures are useless, up or down, because they are of no relevance to anyone locally buying or selling, or prices or volumes. It doesn't make a difference. Now, what that number should say, the 12.5%, if it was a significant, meaningful increase in transaction volumes for the whole country, is it would tell you that it's easier to move house now. Is that true? Is it easier to move house right now than it was in 2017? No, it's not. So this is what I mean. It's data with no interpretation. It's just a blob of national blob, and it's a bit of a bigger blob than it was last year. It completely conceals all the nuance, all of the actual relevant things that really matter, like what's happening in London, like the places in the country where there genuinely is significantly higher activity, which is causing the average to show this, when in other parts of the country, the activity is lower. All right. And Matt, if you're trying to apply Chris's national housing sales figures to your move, there is zero correlation between the national averages and anyone's move. Now, like, there's a lot of data that Chris has, and it's, a huge amount of data. I don't think it's interpreted in a useful way. Cayman Black, houses have been making money for the last 50 years, so it's not easy to change mindset about this. True. They have been making money for the last 50 years. And that is why it's difficult to change people's minds. But if you don't heed the warnings that it's changing, don't come running to anyone and squealing, "Oh, it's not fair," when you find out that it isn't the case anymore, like all the people who bought new builds in the last 5 years who are now in negative equity are finding. Chris Hawkes says, I'm a new resident to the UK and luckily in a position to purchase a property and entered an agreement to do so. After watching this channel, I decided to just rent and invest my money elsewhere. Okay. Well, I'm here to report the truth. And if what you've discovered on this channel has made you less like, I'd love to know, Chris, is that because you thought you were going to make money or because you really wanted to own? Because if you just want to own because you want to own, you should own if you're buying long term. But if you were buying because you thought it was a good investment and this channel's changed your mind, then that's good. I'm happy to hear that. I'd love to know whereabouts in the country you are as well. Because if you're going to be buying, were you going to buy a flat or a house? Good to know. What's in that tea, Charlie? Yes, the result of an impotent government. Yeah, a couple of there might be no BBC tonight. I do want to make one comment on this. I'm someone who accepted without question the BBC's intention, at least, to be neutral, impartial, and to report with balance. That doesn't mean to say I think they always have. They always have had allegations of bias leveled at them for a long time. And I think in the past, my mind used to be, yes, sometimes they don't get it quite right, but they're always trying. They're always trying. And then that changed for me a couple of years ago because with this thing in particular, that Trump speech, like everyone else, I accepted without question that was the case and that he had incited people to violence on the January the 6th riots on Capitol Hill. I believed it, didn't question it. And then a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, 2 or 3 years ago, actually said, did you watch the whole video? Did you actually see the speech? I went, no. He said, well, just watch it. And in that moment, when I saw the original speech where you see that he didn't say that, it just, I have loved watching BBC stuff since I could remember, right? 3 years old, 4 years old. All the kids' TV shows in the BBC in the 70s, all that kind of stuff. I've always loved it. And Planet Earth has been some of the best TV. I love Desert Island Discs. I love some of the comedy that they used to do. The Two Ronnies was just incredible. I've always loved it. And I can't, in that moment when I realized that they had actually willfully misled people, my trust just evaporated like that. Oh my God, there are people willfully abusing our trust at the BBC. And I've never commented on it before. I haven't believed a word they've ever said since. It's just, there are still things I love about the BBC. There's still certain programs I love about BBC, but I couldn't believe it. And I don't think, without even getting into reasons of why, what it means is, for my mind, is it had become, what's the word? What's that word? I can't think of it now. Possessed, basically. The organization had become possessed by people who think it's okay to do that, right? People in positions of leadership thinking it's okay to willfully mislead your audience. That's just my personal opinion, right? So what's happening to them now? They've had it coming. And, if you look deeper, for people who want to look deeper, you will find far more examples of this kind of behavior by the BBC. Not just the BBC, lots of media, right? They're no worse than anyone else. But the problem is that they were more trusted than other people because they weren't commercial, because they're not selling to advertisers. They're not selling out to advertisers. So they're not susceptible to agenda, or so we thought. Not the case. They are susceptible to it. They have been guilty of it. Kind of breaks my heart, actually, as a kid who grew up loving the BBC, genuinely, that they would make such an egregious breach of trust of their audience. And every time I hear them now talking about fighting misinformation, it makes me cross. I just want to put my fingers up to them and go, how dare you lecture us on impartiality and truth and misinformation and shit when you are now one of the worst culprits of willfully spreading misinformation. How dare you position yourselves as an organization that can be trusted? You can't. That's it. Game over. No one's ever going to trust you again. Whether you survive or not, I don't really care either way. But Merrin said, "Oh look, why don't we just get the BBC to stop doing some stuff and do the stuff they're good at, like news?" No, news. I mean, they used to be brilliant at it, but it's clearly the case that they've become infected, and they can no longer do news as news should be done. I think stick to the drama. Stop the news. There needs to be some completely different alternative way. And there isn't one. I don't know how you do it. But anyway, sorry. Unusual for me, but they are. And I know that I use their news stories somehow. Again, this homelessness one. Why? Why did they change the headline on this? The headline was, it started out as crisis reports massive. There's a report of a huge amount of underreported homelessness. Why? Who made them change that headline? Because that was a much more important headline than this one. Homelessness charity to become landlord for the first time. Oh, okay. It's not a big deal. Actual homelessness twice as big as being reported. That is a big deal. Why did you change that headline? Yeah, I just don't trust them anymore. I don't trust them anymore. And I genuinely, I actually feel myself being slightly emotional about this because of how much I always used to, and how much I feel abused. My trust has been abused by the people who've knowingly done that. Anyway, right, stop, Charlie, stop. What were the other questions I wanted to answer? Okay, Timo's post-budget prediction: BBC collapse, maybe. UK economic collapse, unemployment to 7 to 8%. Oh my God, that would be awful. But yeah, I don't disagree. Currency falls, Reeves and Starmer curtains within months. General election by 2027. All right, interesting. Simon Lloyd, softening demand requires a Viagra tablet. Very good. Right. Thanks, Sharon Smith. Hard agree. Yeah. Institutionally captured. That's a very good way of describing it. Right, guys. Any questions? I've got to wrap it up otherwise. Yeah. Yeah, I know people. Some of you say the BBC is being a propaganda outlet for the government. I think it has become a propaganda outlet, but not for the government, not for either government, for itself and the people who have infected it with this problem. Jill Hayes, here's a question. Sorry, I missed that question. Happy with the price we're paying for the house, but we are on the hook for extra stamp duty as we also own a flat. Just wondering if there might be changes to stamp duty that could work in our favour. No, Jill, I don't think there are going to be, because I think if you're purchasing a second property, if anything, they're going to look to hit you harder, would be my guess. I mean, that's a low confidence guess. It's just a guess, but I wouldn't be expecting your stamp duty to reduce on this second property purchase. Raymundo says, is there any way to know that you're overpaying? I know you can compare some of property sales, but things can change in a couple of years, so it's difficult. Yeah, listen, overpaying is a personal, subjective thing. It's not about the value in relation to other properties. It's, is it worth it to you? If the answer is yes, you're not overpaying. And if the answer is you've overextended yourself, put yourself in a difficult position, then you are overpaying. And I know it sounds a bit woo-woo and hippie, but you usually know in your gut, you know. And generally speaking, if you've had an offer accepted and your instant reaction when you hear the offer's been accepted is unbridled excitement and enthusiasm and positivity, nerves is fine. Bit of, oh my God, we're buying a house. Oh my God, that's very cool. But if it is overall one of predominant positivity as your reaction, then that's a fairly good sign that you haven't overpaid. Whereas if your reaction is, oh great, our offer's been accepted. Ooh, why do I have that feeling of buyer's remorse? Why do I have that sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach? That's when you know you've overpaid. Guys, I really have to go. I've got to go. Thank you very much. Sorry for the getting in too deep stuff today. But I think we're in pretty crazy times, aren't we? Hope you all got my newsletter this morning. If you didn't, make sure you're on the mailing list for my newsletter, mhwc.co.uk/newsletter, where I also include my weekly thought of the week that's exclusive to the newsletter. Might have been a bit of overlap with that in today's video. If you are new, please make sure you start, if you're a buyer, by watching my video. Just go and search for it. Charlie's 10 Golden Rules of Buying, Home Buying. And if you're selling, Charlie's 10 Golden Rules of Home Selling. Please start there. And then when you're choosing your conveyancers, if you haven't got a very high degree of confidence in the conveyancing firms you found, please talk to my guys, mhwc.co.uk/conveyancing. And same with brokers. If you don't have a whole of market independent mortgage broker you feel you can absolutely trust, you can absolutely trust the guys that I work with. I've been working with these guys for 3 years now, as with the conveyancing guys. And make sure you get your search pack yourself. Don't rely on your conveyancer to get it. For the reasons for that, go and watch the video. Just put Moving Home with Charlie search pack video, and you'll find several videos about it. Explains why. You can provide the search pack to your conveyancer and be in control of when it's ordered and your reaction to it, and see it yourself firsthand, rather than it just happening in the background. You don't really know what's happening. It can lead to a fall through. Okay. It's definitely worth always getting your own search pack, and you can get it there. Okay, guys, have a fantastic weekend. Strap yourselves in for the budget. God, I wonder if they're even going to hold the government together for the next 12 days. Who knows? Have a fantastic